regular walk and talk here, coming to you live from the beautiful city of Sao Paulo, Brazil. And I wanted to talk, this is a video I tried to do yesterday. It didn't go well. I was having technical issues, sound issues, and they were playing music where I was at, and there was just a lot going on. So I want to do this video today, and I want to build. There's just been so many creators, YouTube channels that I've been on, just checking out and finding out more about what's going on from more of a kind of secondhand perspective. A lot of them are world travelers too, and they've been living in places like Tanzania just recently, living in different parts of the world that are now kind of going through their own uprisings. You know, a lot of the youth, especially Gen Z, have become very tired of the inequities and the inequality that exists in a lot of their societies and cultures and countries. And so I want to get into it and talk about it. I think it's very important that we are, one, aware of what is happening on a global scale, you know, aware to the point where we are clear about where is the actual place that we want to, you know, kind of take the next step towards if we are considering leaving the U.S. And then also just to ask the question, like, is there really anywhere that you can go and be, you know, in what would be considered a safe haven? Like, are there really countries that are safe havens for us right now, especially if you are looking to leave the United States? Now, I've been watching Unapologetic Nomads, who is a family of global travelers that I really enjoy watching. And they, first of all, had just recently left Tanzania. They just kind of, the spirit guided them out of Tanzania, and they ended up back in South Carolina, where they're from. And, you know, they have been trying to find out and get more details on the ground about what's going on in Tanzania. And it took them a while to be able to touch in and get in touch with their peoples out there. But it's a pretty harrowing story, y'all. I mean, basically, Tanzania has been going through political unrest due to the president that has been in place that came into rulership after Magufuli, the very powerful president that they had in place in Tanzania during the pandemic times, passed on. And so it was a woman, and she had kind of inherited that office. I don't know her name. She has like an Islamic name. And she's been in there, and people were hopeful for her. She was making some good changes when she first got in. But now, as we all probably know or have seen, Africa has a hard time, the countries in Africa have a hard time when election time comes, okay? And so it was time for her to, you know, be potentially reelected or not this time. And by the point of reelection, you know, her approval ratings weren't as high. And so instead of them doing a real, you know, competition where she got to really run for presidency, they just kind of announced her the president again. So in other words, kind of like, I don't want to say a coup because it wasn't a violent coup, but it definitely was not a democratic election, right? According to those that, you know, we have been hearing from out in Tanzania. And so this colonel, somebody really high up in the military, did some long video where he just sat in front of the camera and he just started talking about how the government is stealing from the people, how, you know, none of what they're doing is aligned with the best interests of the people. And he kind of disappeared after he did this video. So he turned on the feds, and next thing you know, it started popping off. And up to now, they're saying within like a span of maybe less than 2 weeks, y'all, they're thinking over 1,000 people have been killed in this uproar, because it's basically the youth against, you know, the federal police and those who are representing and protecting the government there. So very sad. And so the brother and sister from Unapologetic Nomad they've been making some really good videos, really valuable videos, and they're coming from the perspective of a family who's been living all over the globe, not just Africa, for over 10 years. And they were like, you know, there comes a point where, one, you have to be considering making some moves, you know, as someone who's an outsider in someone else's land, and they're going through these kind of things. You don't really have the details. You won't understand it. You don't speak the language. Sometimes it's good to move out of the way. And they made a really good point about that. And I just kept thinking, man, this is really sad. I mean, a lot of us had always looked to Tanzania as kind of like our African safe haven. It had been the beacon of like stability outside of like Botswana on the east coast of, on the eastern part of Africa for many years now. I think for maybe 50 years, super stable. While there was, you know, problems in Kenya, problems in Zimbabwe, problems all over, they were just kind of holding it down. So this is really sad. And the other part about it is that, you know, especially when Magnifolio was president, a lot of us moved out there. So it's a lot of African Americans living out there, doing business out there. You know what I mean? They bought properties, they own restaurants, own bed and breakfasts. So it's a lot going on with this one. And also, you know, a lot of people, they get out there and they fall so deeply in love and are so entrenched that when these kind of things start to happen, your first instinct is, yeah, maybe I need to go, but I don't want to. This is where I live now. This is home. And so there's probably going to be a lot of us who end up in the midst of this crisis if it doesn't go ahead and peter out and it doesn't look like it's wrapping up. I mean, there's still things going on. The internet was off the whole time these killings were taking place. So those of us on the outside that wanted info couldn't get none. It's just been a lot. And that's just an example of one of the uprisings. You know, it's just a lot going on. I mean, I think about if we come back across the globe, back to the Americas, what is going on in the Caribbean and in Venezuela? Like literally, Big Orange is out there dropping bombs on people like fishermen in the ocean, who's out just fishing, Trinidadian people, Colombian, Venezuelans. It hasn't just been Venezuelan cartel people that they've been bombing out the sea. I mean, supposedly, from what they tell us. Again, we do not know what's real and what is not when it comes to the federal government and what they're telling us and what they're doing, okay? But we know there's some tension there. And as of the last couple of days, you know, supposedly, now I heard Russia's been had military presence on Venezuela for a long time now. But supposedly they're moving in warships and stuff. But I don't know this to be true. I have tried to do some research on it. It's kind of hard to corroborate whether that has really happened. But over the last couple of days, supposedly, Russia has moved in some warships and some you know, war-related odd things, you know, war-related ships and planes and things like that. I don't know. Again, look into it if it's of interest to you. But this is very key because I have been living in the Caribbean for on and off for about 10 years. Between here, the Caribbean, and sometimes I'll be in the States. So it's mostly been that over the last 10, 11 years. And so where me and my children were usually based in the Caribbean is in St. Croix, the U.S. Virgin Islands. And we always understood that the Virgin Islands was a very key place in the Caribbean when it came to war strategy for the United States. That's why they bought it from the Danes back in the 1800s, okay? So the U.S. Virgin Islands is very close to Puerto Rico, another U.S. territory. And so now I'm finding out the U.S. has opened up military bases that have been closed for years, for decades, on Puerto Rico, again, very close to where I was living before coming back to Brazil. And they're also using St. Croix's deep waters to have their big warships, you know, so to not even anchor those, but to have them there so when they're ready to move out from the Caribbean, they can come from halfway down or whatever, you know, a ways down, instead of having to come from wherever, like that big Gerald D. Ford ship, I think is usually in Norfolk, Virginia, right? So they're doing a lot of positioning, you know, doing a lot of positioning right now. They're doing the strikes. And it's like, what does this mean? You got Trinidad signing on to want to be in cahoots with America on this. Mind you, they've been neighbors with Venezuela, literally 10 miles from Venezuela. They've been right there, you know, working with them, sharing the oil, because again, Venezuela has oil, right? And just working together. And now America comes in and now they are antagonistic towards each other. So it's just a lot of weird stuff. Like right now, I wouldn't suggest if anyone was looking to go abroad, try to move somewhere. Obviously, I wouldn't suggest trying to go to the Caribbean at this point. Not at all. I wouldn't suggest going to Tanzania. Like we really have to be, not thinking that we can outrun this thing, because this is a divine thing. This is a spiritual thing that's happening. Because at this point, the world is tired of what these elites have been doing, the way they've been corralling and hoarding resources that really should just be for everyone, stealing and making themselves into these huge, mega rich individuals, when here there's a whole population of people who are trying to get through with just basics, okay? And so the whole world is sick, the whole world is tired. And so you're gonna be seeing a lot of this stuff, and that takes us back to what's even happening in the US, because God knows that's a hot mess. So you got, Big Orange doing what he's doing down in the Caribbean. He's threatening Mexico. He's threatening Nigeria. He's bothering Brazil about our payment system out here. I don't know what that means, because Brazil is not known for being in no beef with nobody. But Brazil is BRICS. Brazil is part of the BRICS alliance. That is definitely more aligned with Russia and China, okay? So here they're harassing us about the payments, the payment system that we use down here, because it's not Visa, it's not Apple, okay? And so there's a lot going on, and a lot of bullying coming from the side of the United States. And, I feel like I've been talking about this stuff every day, but because it's so important right now that we're clear, and we do need to ask ourselves, like, is there anywhere to run? Now, I will say I have been watching the nomadic, unapologetic nomads, and they are very seasoned travelers. And they have went ahead and got themselves back to the States and said, I'm just gonna sit this one out back home where I got peoples, you know what I mean? And just wait, because it can get dicey when you're in other countries, and it can get dicey when you're in other countries and things start to pop off. Because, one of the things that you're at a loss for usually would be language, historical understanding, and really being tapped in enough to the culture where you understand some of what's happening, right? And so it can be problematic. And so when I come on here, I'm not trying to tell people it's 100% guaranteed that you'll be, not have to endure some of what's happening globally if you move to another place. I have to keep it real. And a lot of what I suggest to people is that if you feel like, for your mental health, that it would be better for you to find another space and place to do things, that you consider moving abroad, for your mental health. And like I know for me right now, Brazil's totally peaceful. So where I live is totally peaceful. But I also mentioned Brazil because one, Trump has got his eyes on Brazil, and two, there is some issues in that Rio de Janeiro area right now that some of you have probably heard about, which is a common area of major conflict, and I think also dark ritual around the things that they're doing. They're like people of color down there. And to be honest with you, here in Brazil, it's a little different, because the thing that the state really goes against here, yes, it's race-based, but it's because people are so mixed here. Outside of when you go into South Brazil, where it's quite white, everywhere else in Brazil is so mixed. Everyone's a mix of indigenous, black, and some European. So really what it is here is that it's a big divide between the rich and the poor. And so if you find yourself on the side of living in the favelas, living in the quebradas and all that stuff, then there is a possibility you're going to be kind of engaged in some kind of warfare with the political powers that be, and the feds and the government, and mostly even the city and the local police. And so they're having some issues down in Rio. Again, we don't deal with all of that out here, not at this time. Brazil has had times where a lot of the cities were popping off with violence, especially against brown bodies and things like that. But where it's very kind of centralized now are certain cities, and Sao Paulo is not one of them. And Rio is like the main one. So for anyone who was thinking about coming to Brazil, I have what I feel to be quite a safe haven at this time where I am, but I would tell people just make sure that you are clear and careful about where you decide to go if you want to go and have a peaceful existence and a nice life. Brazil is a gigantic country, so there's plenty of safe spaces and amazing places you can be in here. This country, I've been to a lot of parts of it. I've lived up in Bahia in perfect peace. I live here in São Paulo in perfect peace. So I know that this country offers a lot of peace, and then it has its areas. And unfortunately, because I think Black Americans are so chaotic and drawn to chaos, when we come into Brazil, a lot of us want to go straight into the heart of the madness, and that is Rio de Janeiro. We just are drawn into that energy. And I'd be like, why are you drawn? Why do you want to live in Rio? Like, I get that it has that historical reputation and the music and the vibe. Believe me, Rio has been an amazing contributor to the culture and the musical culture of Brazil. It's an amazing city. It's a beautiful city. But it ain't nowhere to be trying to look to move, especially with a family, right? Period and point blank. You go to Rio, them people that live there are gonna be telling you, yeah, this place is a shit show. It's crazy. The people that live there, the locals, that's how they talk about, everybody talks about Rio like that. So I don't know why we are so drawn into chaos everywhere we go, but we have to watch that, because that's the kind of stuff that have you caught up somewhere like what's going on in Tanzania and not reading the signs and not peeping the game and peeping the vibe and being like, okay, yeah, it's time for me to shift. There's a brother, I think his name's Meet with Mark or something like that. He had been living in Tanzania for 5 years. He's a YouTuber here. He had been living in Tanzania for 5 years. He'd been doing his thing. I think he'd been doing a lot of business, had a lot of issues doing business and dealing with that old kind of just run down system of doing things and blocking other people from expanding, and especially foreigners. It just was like not a good vibe for him. So he left recently too. That's another one that left, that got called out of Tanzania. And then all of this stuff started happening. So it's like, you can't just be out here. If you're gonna be out here traveling, you still need to have your intuition super peaked, super ready to shift if need be. And that's why I used to call when I was doing a lot more consultations and working with people, as I have been traveling a lot with my children, I used to call my business Global Nomad, because you have to have a mental nomadic mentality. You have to be thinking from the perspective of shifting as need be. Now, I don't like going from place to place. I don't do that unless I need to. So, for instance, when the pandemic hit, I was on my island, skylarking, having a good old time, because we pretty much have a good time everywhere we live. And the pandemic hit out of nowhere. Everything was cool except people were tripping. Like, they were really tripping. Like, people that I would never have thought would be going for the regular narrative that was being pushed out was just like falling. You know what I'm saying? Like, really falling for it, really drinking all of the Kool-Aid. And it was just weird because that island is, lots of roots and culture and Rasta and all of this kind of stuff, right? So it was a little weird. I got to the point, I think I stayed for about a year. And then I got to the point where I was like, yeah, I think I'd like to move around a little bit. That's when they started dropping all the shots and all that stuff. And I was like, yeah, this is getting strange. And that was the first time I brought my kids to Brazil. I had already been living out here, but it was the first time me and my children came out. So that's the kind of moves I make. And we stayed a long time that time. Then we went back and we came back again. So we're in Brazil again. But saying all that to say is that you got to have your fingers on the pulse. You can't just be, sitting up and getting stuck anywhere at this point, because the world is crazy. But I do understand those who saying, let me just root down, get a house, grow some food, get in with my neighbors. Hopefully my neighbors is sane and good, and we can be in some kind of, that's also a very good plan and a very good move. So I totally get all perspectives. I mean, I'm on here to support those who really feel a call to get out of the U.S., because it's going to be those kind of people. there are going to be people who just are really called to leave, and that is their destiny, and they feel that. And so I can support you on that because that's how I am. Every time I'm in the US, I'm like, yeah, I gotta go. I literally can stay a few weeks and then it's like, I just gotta go. I'm not doing this. I don't like the oppressive energy that I feel on my head when I'm there. So, but I will say, for those who, can deal with the energy, maybe they're not so overly sensitive where it affects them in that way, and they just build their little kind of cave, their little safe haven around them, get on some land. I think in the U.S. it's very important that you have access to or on some land. If you're going to do that, one, for the grounding, because it's very hard to stay grounded there, and two, for just the ability to do for self if you need to, and really just have that mentality of doing for self, being sovereign on the land, establishing network with other people who are sovereign minded and who are homesteading and doing all of those kind of things. I think that's very important for all of us right now, but especially if you're in the US. And so these are some of the things that are on my mind. What else? I mean, there's so much going on everywhere that it's hard for me to even think about. I mean, even the sister on the Unapologetic Nomad, she was talking about, because her and her family have lived all over Asia too. And so she had been talking about her peoples in Nepal. Nepal was popping off recently, so there's just like, there's an energy on the planet right now. It's a frequency, and it's one of like overturning and actually bringing down what was built up. So, it's kind of like the old out with the old, in with the new. And that, I think we can really see that is happening in a major way. And I don't know, and I don't think everybody's going to be safe in that. I think there are going to be some losses. They just lost 1,000 people in Tanzania. I don't think those were all bands of thugs and stuff. Those were probably people who were just out expressing themselves, and political violence, you know what I mean, it popped off. Just like with the whole mess with ICE and protesters being attacked, and ICE going around throwing people all over the place and attacking and assaulting people, for no good reason. Bunch of savage dudes that just want to be out there, assaulting other humans, for money, but really probably just because they just are, sociopaths that want to be doing that kind of work, So this is what we're dealing with in America. It's a lot. And it's amazing to me, because I know that the average human is a good person, is a decent person. But because of all the layers of programming and all of the government manipulation, especially with Americans, and all of the things that we are constantly going through, it's hard for people to be, to really be themselves and to really be decent and good. And so you do have those bad seeds, you do have those bad apples, the narcissists, the sociopaths, the psychopaths who are born and don't even have a fully human makeup. You do have these, especially the psychopaths, but more so you have decent humans everywhere. And it's just sad that because of this political strife and everything, there will be some losses of decent people, good people. But for us, as those who are visionaries and are seeing things ahead of time, and also trekking and making way so that we can share with other people, it's important for us to also be very attuned to everything that's going on everywhere and move accordingly. Or, find a good space where we can just ground down and stay put. So there's a couple of different ways you could do it. And everyone is going to have a leaning towards and a calling towards a certain thing. If you're supposed to be building in the US, and that is the calling for you, then that is what it is. That's why I don't promote the fear energy, like you need to run in fear. Because everybody has their own calling and their own work to do. Don't run in fear, like move because the spirit is directing you to move. I have a background of being what you would call a physical medium. So I'm very attuned to like frequencies around me. So it keeps me safe, because whenever things are coming around me that might be dangerous or what have you, I'm gonna see or feel it before it hits. And so I get out of the way. So I have gotten out of the way a lot in my life, especially in my travels with my kids. Even when we were on Puerto Rico living at one point, we had went through Hurricane Irma. So Hurricane Irma had hit Puerto Rico, and we went through it, and it was cool. It came on shore right where we lived. So we kind of got the brunt of it, but it was okay. You know, Puerto Ricans were amazing to go through that with, and we did the thing. But we at that time did not know that, what was it, maybe a week and a half later, that Hurricane Maria was on its way to us, because they weren't really giving no good feedback about what Hurricane Maria was doing. And so I don't know what it was. I was there. Then all of a sudden it was like I was packing all my stuff up to leave, and I just decided, yeah, I think I'm gonna go on back to the States. I'm gonna get on back to the States and go spend time with my grandparents and what have you. My grandfather had just died. So packed it up. We had scheduled a flight, and the flight had gotten canceled a few times. And so we had left where we were staying in Fajardo, and we went and we were staying with my girlfriend and her family out in Toa Baja. And that's like close to San Juan area. And finally, you know, I got my flight and we got out of there. And as soon as we got back to the States, it was like maybe a day later, they were like, yeah, Hurricane Maria's a 5 and it's headed straight to Puerto Rico. So, you know, when that happened, it was very severe for me, because I felt like almost guilty. I had just left, and we were struggling together with everybody around us, you know, to get through Hurricane Irma. And then I left, and then boom, this other catastrophe hit. And it was lights out for Puerto Rico, man. And we were so worried. It was lights out. Like, couldn't even get in touch with nobody out there for like, I don't know, a couple of weeks. It was just dark on the map. You couldn't see, there was no light, there was no nothing. No one was prepared. Saying all that to say is that that would have been a really catastrophic thing for me and my family. And I've just always been so blessed to have a good pulse of things and like know when it's time to shift. That is like one of my gifts. And so in this case, with everything that's happening in the U.S., the U.S. stripping away so many legal protections, so many laws, knocking off, the government is just going full like crazy. Even Trump was ordered by the the Supreme Court, or whatever court he was at, to go ahead and reinstate, or at least give the SNAP EBT out that is set aside for emergencies during this shutdown. And he was like, nope. So, you've got the madness of people who don't know how they're going to feed their families for the next month, because God knows it's enough people, 42 million people, that literally supplement and make their lives work because they have EBT and SNAP, right? And WIC and all these different programs in a very overly inflated, ridiculous place, okay? And so now these people are scrambling around trying to figure out how they're going to manage, how they're going to function. Craziness. And so we don't know where that's going. Hopefully it will get resolved soon, but we don't know what direction that's heading in. And it's like, on one hand, we could say, hey, it's time to tear the Band-Aid off, right? And go through what we got to go through. But it's a little harsh to do this to so many women, children, veterans, disabled people who are dependent on these social services, okay? And we know there's some bad actors and people who are misusing these things. We know all of this. But I would say more so, there's a lot of people who just have needs, and the United States has become unbearable to live in a lot of different ways. So yeah, you have that going on. But for those who can and feel like they want to stay in their homeland, they feel like their ancestors are from America, which for a lot of African Americans, we are literally not African. Our ancestors have been in America, in the Americas, in Turtle Island. And, some people call us the Niji, whatever. And they basically stole our birthright. They stole our ancestral gift by trying to make it look like we came from somewhere else. So with that being the case, I understand folks wanting to stay put. I totally get it. Just make sure you set yourself up, if you're going to do that though, where you can be as non-dependent upon anything the government has to offer as possible. That's the thing. If you stay in the U.S., get on your own too, like for real, where it's like all you need to do is barter and trade and work with your neighbors and your neighborhood and your peoples around you and your family, and try to really get out there. I mean, one day I have that dream of just straight homestead, animals and growing food. I have a background myself as an organic farmer. I farmed in Georgia for years, farmed in the Virgin Islands. So, I have done some farming, and I would love to have that lifestyle. And I think in the U.S., that's what's being called for right now, because in cities is getting stupider and stupider. I mean, besides just the actual danger of existing in those cities, the types and the level of strange crimes that take place, the lack of safety in the schools that the children have to endure, being forced into these schools that aren't even really safe for them. Very strange. You got your women teachers in there preying on kids now. Beyond the men, women preying on children, shootings and things. And again, we still don't know where a lot of this stuff is coming from. It doesn't seem organic. Ooh, the most dangerous place in the U.S.? I don't know. I mean, somewhere I wouldn't want to go is like Chicago. I have zero interest. The most dangerous place to me, the U.S., I just like anytime I'm there, I just do not feel settled there. I do not feel safe. It's not like I feel like super, super scared. I mean, I don't go and stay in no real seedy places, but when I'm there, it's just an overarching, this energy of you're not safe here. This place is like, it could pop off at any moment. You got people that's trafficking folks left and right. I mean, it just doesn't feel good. I've never felt good there. And this is why I don't spend any time there anymore. And I have family there. It is sad. I got people I want to see, that I would like to see and go be with. But at this time, as a mother, I'm still raising children. I have to prioritize them and their safety. And I'm not going to feel good about my kids roaming around out there. I'm sorry. And I have friends of mine who have been living international for years as well. Girlfriends of mine and their grown children, the second they got a chance, went back to the States. So that's where we're from. And at the end of the day, it is a natural to want to go back home, right? But for me right now, and I have a grown child too, and if she wanted to go to the States, okay, cool, I would support her. But we have just had so much peace not doing that, not living there, not living like that. Now, we had a beautiful life when we did too, but over the years, things have gotten worse out there. Like the last time we were living in Georgia in the Athens area, lovely. Had a nice life outside of my marriage, Had a beautiful life there, family, friends, and a decent community. Great food, it was great. But it's just that things have gone down everywhere. They've gone downhill and the prices have gone uphill. It looks like real. Oh, you in the U.S. You asked me about in the U.S. No. Oh, you're asking me if the U.S. is like Rio. No. The U.S. is different. The U.S. has a lot of issues with trafficking of people. So a lot of movement of different young people all over the place. A lot of people disappearing. It's just a totally different energy. Oh, Chicago and Rio, I would say similar. They would probably be the most similar to each other. A lot of gang violence. This kind of, I know you guys don't call it cartel in Rio. I think, Danielle, aren't you from Rio? Yeah, but a lot of violence that is kind of gang related and kind of organized crime related and that kind of thing. And then a lot of battling with the police and that kind of stuff. I would say Chicago and Rio more similar. This is why I don't go to Rio. I love Rio. It's beautiful. The last time I was there, I was robbed in just a couple of days of being there. I don't go out. I wasn't clubbing. I don't be out on the town at night. I'm not comfortable doing that in Rio. But as a parent, I just don't got time to be caught up in nothing stupid. But literally a few days in was still have my phone taken, walking around at 10 in the morning. So that's what I'm saying. It's like, that's why I be looking at Americans. It's like, if you are looking to have a peaceful experience, why are you going straight to Rio and then going to be walking around trying to tell yourself, oh, it's fine here. Nothing's ever happened to me here. It's fine. No, it's not really that fine, and then it's like, it's a time bomb. Like at any point, something will happen eventually. And it is what it is. But that is Rio. And so I just say, if you want to come to Brazil, if people are looking to make a movement towards Brazil. Oh, you're from the favelas? Yeah, man, I love Rio. Rio is the contribution to the culture of Brazil itself, the musical contribution, the art, the culture, amazing, gorgeous city. But I'm not suggesting Americans, make that their number one place to go move to right now. And that's what we're talking about here, Danielle, is if people are looking for places to move on the globe right now, I don't suggest that you choose these super disturbed and unstable locations at this time, because Americans are coming from their own high level of trauma. They've been dealing with a lot of trauma, especially black people in the US. So we don't need to come nowhere and be traumatized some more. And so I don't suggest Rio for people, period. And it is what it is. It's good for visiting, but I don't suggest making that no place to go and just like rent a place and stay. It's great to visit. We'll be in Rio, in the state of Rio, in about a week. We'll be in the Parachi area pretty soon. So, I love Rio. I like to go around. I've been to Arraial do Cabo, Cabo Frio, different parts of the state of Rio de Janeiro. But yeah, y'all. And so I would just suggest that keep your fingers on the pulse, stay aware, understand, where you're going if you do have that calling to leave. And if not, if you're in the States, I highly suggest that you just find you some way to be on some land and have a sovereignty about your life. London is ridiculous. My girlfriend just got back from there. Totally like a ridiculous amount of spending that has to happen for you to exist there. Just stupid, ridiculous. I haven't been to London since 1999, so it's been a long time for me. And I don't care about going there. Sometimes I like it because I like the music a lot out of there. But I will not go and just be spending money just to look cute and make videos on Instagram. I do not care. So won't be going out there anytime soon. But you just have to pick and choose. We already talked about in this video what's been happening out in Tanzania, the uprisings, the crazy brutality that America is showing Venezuela and the Caribbean right now. Treating it like his chessboard and his own personal place to just maneuver and do whatever the hell he wants. There's just a lot going on. And so some people want to leave the US and some people are diehard and want to stay home no matter what happens. And that's up to everyone. For me, I think about Nazi Germany, and from what, if anything that we've been told about that was real. And I know one thing, everybody did not just stay there and say, hey, just gas me. People was trying to get out. They were trying to move around. I'm not saying we're headed to anything like that in the US. But what the US is doing is putting a new system in place. And it's a new system that will include, obviously, the digital IDs and the technocracy. So all of the tech-related implementations that they want to do, which involves a high degree of surveillance. All of these things are being put into place, and they're already in place in a lot of places. Like Brazil is very surveilled and has a lot of digital ID stuff going on already. So this is a global issue, These things are being implemented all over the world. And look at the little short I did yesterday about it. So it's happening all over the world, but you have to, really decide where you're going to be willing to be, or what you're going to do so that you can kind of stay out of that system if you understand the issues that can come with it. So whether you stay in the States on some land or you move out here and just free up or find you somewhere that you can purchase out here. Of course, purchasing land and property here is a lot cheaper, or wherever you go, you got to be keeping in mind that they're putting that technocracy into power, into place, and there's a lot of changes coming down the pipeline. Let me ask something. As a white person, there's some places in the U.S. that I can't go in. Oh, I don't know anything about that. White people move free all over the globe. You know, that's one thing for sure. I mean, there's a white privilege is a real thing, my dear. Yeah, no, I've never heard about that. Black people don't bother white people like that. That's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like we are harassed everywhere we go. Not everywhere, but I'm just saying, black people have to deal with a whole lot of bullshit just for existing. So yeah, so all I can say is, y'all, really just weigh everything out. That's the best thing, really. If you're interested, if you want to get support on a move, I can help with that. You can check my links. But at the end of the day, you need to really weigh everything out. You know how we draw on one side of the paper, you know, the advantages and the disadvantages on the other side. You're going to have to think about that, because nowhere is really necessarily a safe haven right now, especially from the global technocracy. Okay, we're not. It's going to be very hard to be able to carry out business and do the things that you want to do with the upcoming implementations. That's going to be basically connecting all of your biometric material to your identity, to your internet identity. Everything is going to be linked in. And so they're going to have a tight rein on everything everybody is doing across the globe. The only places that will not have to be, or that will not necessarily be involved in this, are only those countries that are so undeveloped that they actually can't, they don't have the infrastructure for, putting these things in place. So you're talking about these super poor countries in Africa. I mean, places like maybe Haiti, certain places. But other than that, the whole world is going to be on this. So yeah, safe haven, just like I asked the question in the video title, I'm not sure about that. I just said everybody needs to try to secure themselves, get as independent from the system as they can. And then if you feel like you also want to get out of, for me, the U.S. represents just a high levels of mental programming and kind of a threat to your mental health. So some places, you might have to deal with some inconveniences and some things. But for me as an American, the issue with America is that it's very hard to maintain your mental health and also to be a good person because of the way that they are programming people so heavily in the media there. There's a lot of confusion. I find people to be a lot more sane and normal in other countries and other places than I do in the U.S. And I've lived in Costa Rica. I've lived in parts of Africa. I've lived in different places. And the mental health issue in America is, I've never seen anything like it. It is astronomical. It's insane. And so for people who want to present, and people in the U.S., they're so programmed to the point where y'all don't even realize how mentally off you are. And I've been there. I'm from there. I know. You cannot really stay mentally healthy in that because you're constantly having to be doing, all of this kind of cognitive dissonance in order to even maintain yourself and to live and to exist there, okay? It's cognitive dissonance because you live under an extremely narcissistic regime. And so they are abusing the population in ways that there's no words for the amount of abuse Americans are enduring out there. Did you move to Burkina Faso? Oh, I'm sorry about your son, Cindy. Peace and love. Thank you so much for coming on. Wow. It's interesting, Cindy. I, a few months ago, had gotten into Burkina Faso because I've lived in Senegal and I've lived in Ghana, West Africa. And so I haven't been to Burkina, but they have shined such a negative light on it that I never really considered it. And when I started to research it and see, like some good vlogs and stuff about it, and I was like, oh, it looks like the people are so beautiful. Like, It seems like such a wonderful place. Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you, Cindy. I just be on here ranting. But yeah, oh yeah, that's amazing. Africa is so amazing. I just, you know, I feel like I'm very connected to being from the US, you know, so I don't have the thing where I feel like my ancestors are from there. I just don't go with that narrative. But I love Africa. I was married in Africa. I have a son that is half Senegalese. So I really respect and adore it and hope to get back. I would like to spend some time in Kenya at a point. So I'm looking more to the east now. But yeah, that is amazing. I've just been on here doing my little rants, just talking about all of the madness, because at the end of the day, everyone is going to have to figure out what's the best plan for them. And I know sometimes getting out of the US is a good plan. I found you due to me realizing I've been in narcissistic abuse. Yeah. A lot of us have, you know, because especially coming, now narcissists are everywhere, but coming from a population like what I was just saying of Americans, and the way Americans are just, the mental health, like I was just saying, is just so, it's so out there. Like I can't put my finger on it all the way, but there's just something really off with the people. And so there's a lot of them roaming around. And the thing is with the narcissist doesn't give a shit. Like they don't care who they're harming. You know, they don't care who they're harming. So it's like you meet a lot of people who just don't care about other people like that out there. Now I still believe the vast majority of Americans are great people. I believe that. They're just programmed. But the programming is so heavy. I'm gonna go ahead and say in America, I don't believe in abandoning my country. Well, you stay in America, okay? I work with the Milo and I don't know what the Milo is, but yeah. I'm not sure what that is, Cindy. Yeah, but very, and I've been living globally for years, so nobody's abandoning anything. I just don't choose to live nowhere that has created great divisions among everyone in the population. You got the left, right, the black folk fighting the Latinos and the Asians, everybody pitted against each other. The mental health is in the dumps. The suicide rate is crazy. The femicide rate is insane. I'm not doing that. You know, I'm going to separate myself out from that. I'm not living nowhere where every time you turn something on, they're programming you about you being in the best country in the world. I'm not doing any of this fake stuff anymore. So everyone, if you decide to stay there, stay there. As long as you can stay balanced and stay grounded in all of that, good. And that has nothing to do with abandoning anything. If everyone leaves, the problem doesn't get fixed. I don't know that everyone's gonna leave. I don't tell everyone to leave, and that's why it's good to come in and listen when you come on to different people's feeds and just listen a little bit. Because one thing I personally don't do is try to tell everybody to leave anywhere. I'm all about people staying grounded in the US if that is what feels best and that's what they're called to do. But there are plenty of people who want to leave, and that is great too. Because some of us don't want to stay in the midst of all that mind effery. Because it's really a mind effery. And it's becoming more of a physical thing, but it's more of a mind effery that I'm not dealing with. I'm not doing it, personally. Yeah. For everyone that comes on here, listen a little bit. You're never going to hear me super extreme about anything. I personally have been not willing to stay in the US for long periods for many years. It's been 20-something years of me in and out of different countries and staying out of the US as much as I can. My children don't even, you know, they didn't live in the US for a long period. Like they've never really stayed there for like many years back to back. Maybe like for a few years of their earlier lives. But my daughter's 20-something, she's 20. And she, you know, she's been raised like internationally more so. And that's just what it is. It's up to you. You know, it's a personal choice. Yeah, exactly. It's a personal choice. But I'm glad because I have two very kind of healthy children, mentally healthy, that are kind, they're simple, humble, artistic. You know, I don't have to be worried about them trying to go do this or go do that or get off into anything. You know, and that's because I raised them different. They aren't going to these schools in urban America around all this ghetto culture. They're not doing all this weird stuff. They don't know really much, anything like that, about that kind of stuff. We were on the U.S. Virgin Islands, and a lot of that energy has spilled over into the Virgin Islands. So yeah, I mean, my son has been to school a little bit out there, but it was just so bad, you know, that taking him out of that is just not even a thing to me. I'm so happy to have him online learning. So yeah, you gotta take control over your life and of your family. And if that means leaving a toxic relationship, a toxic place. The last video I did talked about how we are in a toxic relationship with the powers that be in general, but in America in particular. And so, yeah, you're going to make all of the excuses in the world when you're in a narcissistic relationship about why you can't leave, why it might get better, how are we going to make it better. If we just stick it out, it's naturally going to get better. I'm just going to keep loving him, loving it, and things will improve. And that's what you do, and you'll run yourself in a circle until you die, basically, because that's what happens for most people who stay long-term in narc relationships. They end up not, you know, just, everyone dies, right? But they end up, you know, running their life down, ruining their quality of life for their entire lives, and then just dying like that. Never getting to experience a good, you know what I mean, and a peaceful life, because you're just chasing this thing, chasing this relationship, telling yourself it's gonna get better. I'm just gonna keep, you know, I'm gonna stick in it. So that is the mentality that a lot of y'all, especially these ones that's calling themselves whatever it is, FBA or whatever, that's the mentality. Don't know how to let go, or don't know how to at least open up to other possibilities in life. Just want to hold on to a thought and an idea that some random person put out there for you, because it's all about the programming too, because Americans are easily programmed. So anybody can say anything, and an American will attach to it and run with it. I've got no contact with all my siblings and mother. Oh, yes, sis, and you were FBA too. Yeah, I feel all the FBA thing. I mean, I know I've done a lot of background research on my family. I know about the land patents. I know about the $5 Indians. I know I done been deep up in all the research. So I know my ancestors are more than likely right there from Turtle Island, from the United States. They took that from us. But the FBA thing and the direction that that's going, I don't really understand. And then the one who even put that forward is like a known scam artist. So I'm like, yeah, guys, I don't know. So everybody can rock with that and roll with that if they want to. But at the end of the day, the best thing is go internal and see what your internal, you know, thought and idea and intuition is about how you need to maneuver your life, instead of being out here following behind and getting programmed out by some scam artist. Because that's the thing. Black Americans are good for that. Following Dr. Umar, following the FBA guy, following, scam artist after scam artist. Boy, we good for that one. So I just say, you know, it is what it is. I don't claim nothing. I'm not none of those things. I just know my peoples are from the U.S. and I'm not there right now because it's unstable and it's not right. There's something wrong. And you know, no place is perfect, but that's okay. I can find more peace. I am like the happiest I have ever been. And I've been very blessed. I've got to live in the Caribbean for years, all these gorgeous places, done all these things. But I am truly grounded, happy about where I'm at now, safe where I am. My children are safe. We're all blessed right here where we are. And it's a beautiful thing. And I'm not saying we couldn't experience this everywhere, but the fact of the matter is I just moved from an American island in the Caribbean that, because of the colonial reality of America being the owner of that island is in so much disarray. It's so violent. It's so scary, so run down. The government steals every drop of money that comes that's supposed to help to better the place. Horrible. You know, so a place does matter, because it's hard to find this level of joy and satisfaction somewhere where you don't even feel comfortable going out your house at night. You know, and so these are the quality of life factors that I think are affecting or will These are the quality of life factors that's going to make people decide whether they want to stay put in the U.S. and deal with that trashy reality or get on to something better. And there's so much better out here. You know, Asia, a lot of countries in Asia are very stable. A lot of people are moving to Malaysia. They're moving to Thailand right now. Those are the two biggies right now in Asia. If you don't feel coming down this way, but you do feel going somewhere, consider going to Asia. One thing about them, most of those countries stay pretty stable. You know, there are lots of things we can do. Black folk don't have to feel like they just got to go to Africa or they just got to go, you know, to this place or that place, because at the end of the day, we're indigenous to the whole planet. So the whole world is ours to experience if we want to. And so, yeah, I appreciate y'all coming on and staying with me. And yeah, sorry to hear about your no contact, Cindy. That is the best thing you can do. When I was doing my video yesterday, or I don't know when it was, but talking about the narcissistic abuse of being, you know, in America, I was saying going no contact eventually is going to be very important. And at the end of the day, most of us don't do that. We all end up kind of going back and forth. But at least being no contact, and that you, when you are in the U.S., you know, you engage with who you need to, you see your peoples, you keep your heart open, you move in love, but also, you know, trying to make sure you don't get caught back up in that. It's very hard to not get caught back up in that system. I notice a lot of my peoples that have been living overseas for years, when they go back, they take on this spirit that's a lot more aggressive. It's a lot less of a rested, peaceful spirit when they're in the U.S. And I see the shift. I'll see the shift in them very quickly, going from having lived somewhere like in Mexico or down here or somewhere else, and they go back to the U.S. and take on that aggro, that angry spirit. Black people, especially women, become more angry when they're in the U.S. That's not no way to live. I'm sorry. I mean, yes, we have reason to be angry, but to be moving in that energy all the time and projecting that out, that is not good. It's not good for a womb of a woman. It's not good for her mental health. Women should not have to be feeling that spirit and that energy on them. Period and point blank. You know, women are supposed to be peaceful. Our hormones are very sensitive. Our hormones are very sensitive. We're not supposed to be in environments that are triggering hormone swings, you know. So, you know, there's a lot to consider if you're going to stay in the U.S., okay? But I do suggest people at least consider other options, and that is it. I don't tell nobody to do nothing, you know. So, y'all are so sweet. Thank you for coming on here. Does anyone have any questions? I'm a working woman, so I got to get into it. But does anyone have any questions before I get off and get in here? Ooh-hoo. Anyone here? Y'all are so sweet for hanging with me today. I enjoyed that conversation and connecting with you all. I love it when you guys chat me so we can build more. All right. Well, so that's what's up. You know, just come back, check us out. We're going to be doing more videos, look into some of these things that's happening globally, and just keep, you know, don't obsess, but stay aware, y'all, because there's a lot of changes and shifts happening right now. Cindy, please come back on. I would love to hear more about Burkina Faso. Very interested in different places that are offering, you know, a good, safe experience for especially women of color and mothers and things like that. Okay. Peace and love. You all take care. Peace.